So this is the part that I loved, was when I was working on this section of it, is talking about the adoption of these guys. And so we'll talk about some of the concerns of potential adopters. We'll also talk about, the types of people that are typically drawn to senior animals. How do we sell our seniors, And then we'll talk about some creative ideas. Again, I'm always amazed. I wish I had this kind of creativity, but I'm amazed at some of the ideas that they came up with. Okay, but again, another good source for this information, because a great breakdown, is the survey of this of the marketing competition, and what what their feedback was. Okay, so the concerns of potential adopters usually has to do with potential health problems. This is probably not real surprising, right, guys? Do you experience the same thing? They're worried about them getting sick or dying too soon, right? So I think that's reasonable. I mean, I have this, I have to admit, I would think it would cross my mind, adopting. Usually I don't adopt animals, they just find me. Or I foster them and I become a foster failure. So it's usually one or the other. But anyways, but the key here, to deal with this, is really address their healthcare concerns to let them know we've done everything we can to make sure that this dog or this cat is in a good condition. They've had real extensive veterinary care. We've done lab work, that rules out hyperthyroidism, rules out kidney disease. There's lots that we have at the laboratory I work with. It's called a Life Stage 3, which is like a geriatric profile, where you can look at lots of different things. So you could try to alleviate those concerns that potential adopters have by reassuring them about the medical care that the dog or cat has received and the lab work that's been done to try to determine there aren't any issues. I mean, obviously you can't do everything, but you can do physical exam, lab work at a minimum. We're going to be doing that anyways, right? The physical exam. Part of it anyways. All right, so this is my mom. And these are two dogs that are no longer with us, but they were both older when she adopted them. Now, the neat thing about seniors is that they usually, now look at over here, Nellie here is 98 pounds, okay? Now, usually I wouldn't recommend a 98-pound dog be adopted by someone in their 70s. But Nellie, first of all, needed a home, okay? She was at the Dane County Humane Society. But secondly, she was really mellow. So essentially, their energy levels were very matched for each other. She could still go on walks with my mom. That's what my mom likes to do, is go on walks and things like that. But so the energy level makes a difference, too. Another group of people that's attracted to adopting seniors are child-free homes, because there's usually not quite as much activity and stuff like that going on. And so they're attracted to the seniors' less demanding nature. Okay. And then the perception of the people that responded to the survey done by Maddie's fund was that they're big-hearted and compassionate. And I know it's subjective, but I would have to agree. It's typically the people who adopt the seniors, there's just a real special place in their heart. So how do we sell our seniors? All right, being creative is one of them, but I think going ahead and concentrating on the fact that they're usually calmer, more established in their routine and things like that, that's something to think about. But that they're more easygoing is something to concentrate on. Big one here too is what you see is what you get. Oftentimes when people are considering like adopting a kitten or a puppy, I said, you know what? The idea of getting an older, an adult animal, and I don't say older necessarily, but I say an adult, is you usually get, what you see is what you get, meaning that you already know their personality. You already know if they have, not to say issues couldn't develop, but you know if they get along okay. Like in my household, it's important that dogs and cats get along. So I really would want an adult animal so I can know that, because I can't get rid of one animal because they don't get along with the other species, So what you see is what you get. Also is that, they're less work. There's just no doubt about that. Who's had a puppy recently? A lot. Well, you're probably fostering them, right? But they're a lot of work, And with the older pets or the adult animals, it's not as much of an issue. They're you kind of can get the feel-good factor. Dr. Peek shared that with me before. I never heard of that before, but the feel-good factor, when you do something just because it feels good. And adopting an animal that may not have been adopted otherwise, sometimes it can be very, very helpful. And it kind of matches the perception that that senior pet adopters are motivated by compassion anyways. So it kind of fits in with that. And the thing we recommend is avoid using the word old, or geriatric, I think is another one too. But do things like senior, I think is a good one, or mature, and I thought this was really good. Wisest residents. That's a creative way of referring to them. But there's a senior dog project where they got all the website information here where they talk about the top 10 reasons to adopt an older dog. So that'd be kind of like, I think it's modeled after David Letterman when he does his top 10 lists. So it's the same type of thing. So let's go forward here. So I'm going to be talking about the creative adoption ideas, different campaigns, telling individual stories. But we'll be going through each one of these individually. But before I do that, there are two that I'm not going to cover specifically. Some organizations will do is they'll actually reduce or waive the adoption fee as a way of promoting people to adopt seniors. Okay, and some organizations will actually have fundraising programs to cover medical expenses for after adoption. So there's a couple different things to do. All right. Probably a real popular one are campaigns to adopt these senior pets to senior people. And they'll actually bring adoption events to senior living facilities. The idea here is by going out to the seniors and taking the animals to them, there've actually been a lot of success in adopting having the seniors adopt the senior pets. And they usually have more time to spend with them too. But there's been lots of really successful programs in doing that. A lot of people are motivated by the individual story. This is my mom's dog. Her name is Katrina. And the reason that she's called Katrina is that she was such a disaster when the rescue organization took her in. She had Demodex, she had generalized alopecia, or hair loss, she was hyperthyroid, she had otitis externa, ear infection. She had all these terrible things, okay? And my mom had lost a pet, lost her dog, because she still had cats. She had lost her dog probably 9 or 10, her last one, Brandy, who was on the screen previously, about 9 or 10 months previously. And she said, I don't want a dog, too much work. Now, she's had dogs literally all of her life. And I couldn't believe my mother was like, this is going to be the first time she's ever without a dog. I can't believe this, And so it lasted about 9 or 10 months. And then it's someone who I work with, Dr. C.C. Sheldon, who's at the Madison Area Technical College. And she would always bring, because they were dipping her for the Demodex. And every time I would be there for these spay-neurothons where we would have once a month, she'd show up, Katrina, goes, so how's your mom doing? And so I ended up telling my mom about this dog, of course, and she adopted her. And it was the perfect match. It really, really was, because Katrina needed someone special. My mom needed another dog, and so it worked out really well. So many times people are motivated by the story. So tell the story. Tell it. What's that? Work it. That's right. I like that. Work it. Because the story is something that really, really motivates potential guardians. It motivates me too. So I think there's a lot of organizations that don't take advantage of this enough. And it doesn't have to be something extensive. It could be just a blurb, but just tell their story. Okay. Now, this isn't just for seniors, but just happen the example I have here is for seniors, is that you could do a celebrity lookalike. All right, this is Eddie Munster. Does everyone remember Eddie Munster from the Munsters, or are we too young of a crowd here? Okay. This dog, guess what his name is? Eddie, named after Eddie Munster, because they look awful lot alike. Well, this was definitely, because this is so cute and funny, and there really is definitely a similarity. Well, that's what caught my sister's attention. Guess who adopted Eddie? And Eddie he had to have like a full mouth extraction. He did have to have a lot of medical work after his adoption, just because the rescue organization couldn't afford it. But she was willing to do it. And she'll laugh at me when I say that. But so she adopted Eddie, and he's like the greatest dog. She goes, yeah, ever since I've adopted him, now everybody else wants to adopt him. Because he's so personable and all of that. And it was this one thing it was an email that she got that had this comparison of the two, that's what caught her eye. Now, there's some special programs at the Berkeley East Bay Humane Society. They have a program that's called the Golden Paw Programs, and there's the websites and everything. But what they really stress there, because they know that potential adopters of seniors are very concerned about the health aspects of their senior pets. They really stress how all the animals that are there, that are up for adoption, that are senior, have received veterinary care, that they've had some screening done, with the lab profiles and stuff like that. And then, of course, they talk about all the benefits to having seniors. They're more relaxed. You know what you're getting, all the things that we talked about already. But they're a program that's known pretty well. And there's another one at the Oakland SPCA that's called the Whiskers and Muzzle Club, or the Silver Whiskers and Muzzle Club. And they have, kind of the same thing, all a different approach. But the one that I liked the most was the Animal Friends Red Collar Society. Is everybody familiar with the Red Hat Society? Okay. So these are mature women, and I can now be in the club, which scares the heck out of me. But what they do is they celebrate aging by just having a good time and having fun, enjoying life. Well, what this group did is they actually took that same idea and applied it to senior pets. So now they have the Red Collar Society, so they actually have a collar. And so what they've done is they've taken something that was, everybody, and most everybody knows what the Red Hat Society is, and applied it to the dogs, and I thought it was very creative. As a matter of fact, these guys were the winners, or one of the finalists, right, for the Maddie's Pet Finder marketing competition. And I just thought it was so cool that they were creative. Because I'll have to tell you, once I heard that, it drew I wanted to go learn more about them. So I went immediately when I read about it, I went to their website and all of that. So it's just a matter of being, being creative. Okay, so we've got about 5 minutes here for questions.